All right, Tom. So where did we leave off, man? The last time that we talked about this, things were pretty hot.
Yeah. There was a lot of propaganda and spin in the media. A lot of like, he's being universally condemned for these vile, disrespectful actions. Meanwhile, when you read through some of the comments about all this stuff, people are coming up with things like, I might not agree with this action, but you have to ask yourself, this boy here did more for this country than anyone's done in a long time. And like lots of comments like that. I ended up doing an interview where I first met Jeremy McKenzie from the Plaid Army. He's a former Special Forces operator. And, they interviewed me a couple days after we did our interview. And it was the day I got all my conditions changed to how I wanted them to be. And, he didn't have a problem with it. And in fact, he was talking about how him and some of his buddies were talking about showing up at one of these Remembrance Day commemorations with their medals and upside down flags, screaming about how the government and the country are traitors. Interestingly enough, he also spoke at Omar Khadr's thing when he was speaking at Dalhousie University, and he was just outside, saying this is kind of bullshit, because a lot of his friends and guys that he served with died over there. Who knows if they died from explosives that Mr. Khadr planted, which we know that he did. And for him to be just roundly condemned by the people of Halifax and the people of Nova Scotia, it's very bizarre, because it's like, why is the media putting the public at odds with the forces? Like, this guy is a hero, legitimately, like he signed up and fought in a war that I always wanted to serve, but I recognized that the Afghan mission was not on the up and up as far as what the public was being told. Now, I can recognize that not every soldier that signed up for Afghanistan and became like a methylquin casualty like Sean Arnston, or guys that now have very intense PTSD from the things that they were asked to do over there. They didn't know any of that stuff. And like the guy that bailed me out, also a 14-year vet, his position on it is that he was brainwashed. And that's how a lot of the soldiers feel, that they were brainwashed and they were betrayed by the country.
Okay, so let me back this up just a little bit. So you and I made a film. We did a 48-hour film, and when that film was supposed to premiere, you no-showed because
I got arrested. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you spent the night in jail.
Yeah.
And they charged you with
2 counts of mischief.
2 counts of mischief.
Yeah.
And so after spending the night in jail, this did you say he was a 14-year veteran?
Yeah.
He came to bail you out?
Yeah.
You guys didn't know each other prior?
No, he was in he's in my paralegal studies course, and I've actually become very good friends with him throughout my legal training, and we like to hang out and have barbecues and those kind of things, and get to meet his family and his wife, who he met in the forces, and it's really nice that it just kind of happened to work out that my friend, who was willing to be my surety, also happened to be a master corporal, retired, that served in Prince Andrew's regiment.
Incredible. So you've always wanted to serve, and you recognized at the time that what the Canadian military was doing was not on the up and up, and you didn't want to get involved with that. So the way that you've decided would be the best way to serve your country is to spray paint the cenotaph.
Well, I mean, the spray painting of the cenotaph is maybe a footnote in the things that I've done I became, I guess, what you could jokingly refer to as a Facebook terrorist, because the whole issue is that we're in a propaganda war, and what makes it so bullshit wars like the Afghan mission get fought is very powerful propaganda that the public buys into and believes. And so understanding this and understanding that the major ideological conflicts of the last century that saw such massive losses of life, the way that I've tried to serve is by trying to resolve these ideological conflicts in a metaphysical, intellectual way. Understanding and recognizing that when a war happens between superpowers or major countries and big nations, it's like a car crash. There's supposed to be a global rules of the road for countries to be able to coexist and share this pale blue dot. And what happens when governments become decadent, or I should say the societies become decadent, and the people are no longer paying attention to who's driving the car, it's very easy for the car to veer out of its lane and bump into another car. And so what we've seen in the West ever since the end of the Second World War is that they kind of got really drunk at the after party, and they've been swerving all over the road, and like they gotta stay in the lane.
Now, you received, like you say, you self-describe as a Facebook terrorist, and you've received numerous bans, a plethora of backlash online from people, and I know it's balanced out by some support, but I would say, like, just at this point in time, perhaps there's more negative than positive. Is that on purpose?
It's not. Maybe this is going to sound really arrogant, but I understand that the majority of the people in the Western world are not capable of thinking rationally and clearly. Because these are the people that are grabbing at the steering wheel and making the car drive all over the place. And they don't even understand that there's other cars on the road. They don't know how to drive the vehicle. So there's a certain element of the way that I engage with people on the internet where I actually don't care. Because from where I'm standing, you're all retarded. Functionally. And it's at a point where, you're entitled to your opinion, of course, but your opinion's retarded most of the time. Society is designed for a family to grow, function, where people work, they prosper, they build up equity, and they get to own a piece of the pie. That's part of how our system is supposed to exist. And for whatever reason, no one is paying attention to these larger problems in our society that are making that next to impossible. If you look at the birth rates of people that grew up and were born in Canada, birth rates are super on the decline. And the number one reason why I can't convince any of the ladies out there that I knock up to keep the kid is because the economic situation is so backwards. Well, why is the economic situation so backwards? Because it shouldn't be. We're one of the most resource-rich countries in the world. Now, we can't even begin to have this conversation because I'm a white male, and a whole bunch of issues that I would say are more in the realm of the social sphere than they are in the realm of the political sphere. It seems to me like a lot of Western politics these days is more of an argument over what we're going to watch on TV than how the society functions and operates.
How do you feel society functions and operates at present?
Dysfunctionally.
But how? Can you elaborate?
So, just for an example, our tax dollars were used to build the telecommunications infrastructure. So that's all of our collective money that was invested in building the tools that allow Rogers, Bell, Telus, Shaw, all of these people to charge you how much a month to use what your tax dollars built. Why do we pay the highest for these services in the world when our tax dollars built them in the first place? Why is it that TD, Scotiabank, Bank of Montreal, Royal Bank, all of these different big five Canadian banks, why are they able to charge you $15, $20 a month to hold your money? And then they play these silly games where if you use your debit card more times than they want you to use it, then you're going to pay an extra fee. Why is it that we're not having a conversation about that? Instead, we're going to have a conversation about gender-neutral mask deflection or some other made-up superfluous social issue. And I'm not saying that the personal struggles of different groups are irrelevant. What I'm saying is, if you fix the nuts and bolts problems that are causing widespread poverty, it lifts everyone's situation, because cheaper banking rates, cheaper telecommunications rates, a better currency that isn't based off of debt, that fixes everyone's problems. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter if you want to stick your ass in a penis or, it doesn't, that stuff has nothing to do with the nuts and bolts of how to make society work for everyone. And so this whole sideshow that's designed to distract people from actually thinking about the boring, laborious shit of the nuts and bolts of how society actually works. It's just, okay, that's entertaining, people get off on that, and sure, I'll insert myself into the public consciousness as the bad person, just so people can be aware that I exist. And you can call me all these names that are based on absolute nothing, really. Because I mean, you look at all the nonsense that's on the internet. You think that me saying some controversial things to trigger a bunch of retards on the internet is like a reflection of who I really am? Come on.
There was a lot of media coverage about this event, and I remember one of the things they said was you were pissed off that Don Cherry got fired, and that's why you painted the cenotaph. And I just want to ask you, how did you feel about the media response?
I mean, I'm not surprised that the media kind of tried to play it that way, because I understand how the media looks at the public. They also look at the public like you're retarded. The difference is I'm honest about it, and I'm trying to fix your retardation. They say you can't fix stupid, but I try. Don Cherry...
Sorry, hold on. How do you fix stupid?
By arguing with people on the internet. Because, sure, I might make some people upset when I argue with them, but I'm backing them into a corner of a realization that I'm right and they're wrong. And so, okay, some people, when you back them into a corner like that, they're just going to say, fuck that guy. I'm still right, though. So.
Well, it says a lot to, what makes people upset and why. And the fact that people are afraid of being offended nowadays is pretty ridiculous. If you look at what Jordan Peterson says, he says, in order to think, we have to take the risk of offending each other, right? In order to think. So why, otherwise the option is we're not going to think? That doesn't seem like a good idea. That's what he says, right? And I think that what you do provokes people into having to think.
It provokes them into having conversations. They should now, instead of just saying, I believe this, they now have to defend what they believe as well, with articles, facts that could back up their argument. And that's the problem with online debates, is people don't use critical thinking. They don't back up their arguments. I want to see numbers, I want to see articles, I want to see facts.
So tomorrow is the court date, and you're charged with 2 counts of mischief. What is the maximum penalty for that?
It's a summary conviction offense, so maximum would be 2 years in jail, less a day.
2 years?
Yeah, but I'm not really too worried about it. There's a few different reasons why they're going to have to dismiss this case. The court has scheduled the hearing in 112 court, which is the plea court. So the Crown has already offered a plea deal of a conditional discharge commuted sentence, where they want me to admit that what I did was mischief, which I won't do. And in exchange for pleading guilty, they'll just no jail time and no criminal record after 6 months, which is a very sweetheart deal, right? And some people will be like, well, why wouldn't you take that? Well, obviously, if they're offering that, it's because they know they don't have a case. So I'm willing, to take a bullet for this country. So 2 years in jail is just a place where I could build an army to actually take it over.
So you feel that what you did wasn't mischief, and you feel that what you did was a benefit to the country, spray painting the cenotaph?
Well, it's not that what I feel, it's not mischief. In the eyes of the law, especially when you read the Mischief Act, if you get to subsection 7, it states that an act like this cannot be considered mischief because it was done for the purpose of communicating information. What's the information that I'm trying to communicate? Well, the country has gone down the tubes, folks, right? Ye broke faith with us. It's a very simple message, and that's being communicated via the cenotaph. So, good luck trying to secure a conviction. I love making Crown attorneys look foolish. It's one of my favorite pastimes because they are so arrogant and prideful. And to watch kind of the dysfunction of Canada's kangaroo court system, like, there's a reason that they don't let cameras in that place. Because if people could just see what the day-to-day is in there, they would not tolerate this system. Because this system is a joke.
What was it like the last time you were in court?
So the last time I was in court, there was no media attention or anything like that. It was very low-key, and it was just a rescheduling. And that's where I put out the motion to quash. That's where I said I wanted to do the motion to quash. And I said to the judge...
So what is a motion to quash? What does that mean?
So what that means is there's information that's like coming at me in the court case, and my motion is to quash it before we even get to trial, because you have no case. So I cited Rule 601 to a Haitian-born, I think he was a judge, justice of the peace. He had the green sash, so whatever. And so this judge was essentially trying to say that the rule that I was citing wasn't applicable to a summary conviction offense. I responded with the sections that show that it actually is. Initially, what I said was, well, Your Honor, you're wrong about that. 601 is applicable to summary conviction offenses. And he was trying to say, well, I'm glad and then I basically spanked his ass and read down in the rules and pointed out to, oh, wait, no, this applies to all proceedings. So, and that's the thing about the Canadian court system, is that there's a bunch of play on a lot of these rules. And so, if a judge, if me, not a member of the Law Society, just a first-year paralegal student, has a better understanding of the law than the judge, what does that tell you about how seriously these people that are getting paid $350,000 a year of your tax money, how seriously do you think they're taking their jobs? Because they're certainly not taking it as seriously as I take saving this country from its own stupidity.
So, tomorrow, you're going to be representing yourself.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen tomorrow?
One of two things. So they're going to either pressure me into taking the plea, and what I'm going to respond with the pressure from the plea is the motion to quash, which kind of got screwed up because of all this coronavirus stuff. I was supposed to submit it there, but I'm confident to argue it on the merits because there's a few different kind of issues to deal with. The first one is prejudice. And so the initial bail conditions that I was subjected to go see a mental health professional, that's a prejudice bail condition. I was prejudiced by the court in the public, designed deliberately to make me look unstable, right? And the reason why I had to be so rude in the bail court is because I had to argue against duty counsel, the counsel that's there supposed to be representing my interests. So duty counsel had conspired with the Crown to have this matter shielded from public view and to have it traverse to what's called a mental health court, which is an even more of a kangaroo court than the regular kangaroo court that is Canadian court. And so one thing that I learned from one of my teachers at Humber is this tactic of filibuster, which is where you just speak over a proceeding. You know, oh, it's impolite to talk over somebody, especially the dude in the black dress sitting on the big high chair, right? You can't overtalk him. Well, you do, right? And that's what I did. And because I did that, I was able to defeat duty counsel and the Crown attorney and get bail. Now, the trade-off is that I had to have a surety and these stupid conditions, but I refused to even fulfill these conditions. And so a week later, I went into jail again and argued to have these bail conditions changed.
So what were the conditions?
The initial conditions were to see a psychiatrist and meet with and be amendable to mental health workers at a Fred Victor drop-in center. And so that's not in keeping with 11E of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is every individual is entitled to reasonable bail. That's not a reasonable condition.
You don't think seeing a mental health professional is reasonable?
No, it isn't. That was what I ended up pleading or arguing before Justice Little, I think was his name. Good judge. I had case law from Albertan courts and other case law from Ontario courts just citing how these conditions, I pointed out how in the, I think it was RV Bear in Alberta, it was a case where a judge had required an alcoholic to abstain from alcohol as part of their bail conditions, and the court found that was unconstitutional because it was not a reasonable condition, because obviously alcoholics are going to drink. So I argued, well, you guys have diagnosed me with this condition that I'm a paranoid schizophrenic, and to expect a paranoid schizophrenic to meet with a psychiatrist when normally they don't want to meet with psychiatrists, the logic transferred, and that's why it was valid, and that's why it was struck down.
So why are you so against seeing a psychiatrist? I mean, there's many Ontarians who can't get psych help because it's so expensive, so a lot of people, if being court ordered and it was free, would jump at the chance to see a psychiatrist.
Psychiatry is an ongoing crime against humanity. Every single psychiatrist, every single psychiatric nurse needs to be lined up against a wall and shot.
What about the psychiatrists that are actually trying to help people
Doesn't
with
matter.
depression,
You
mental health,
can't
etc.?
help someone against their will.
Okay, that's true. You cannot help
These
those who don't
people
want to
are
help.
experimenting on people. Psychiatric drugs cause harm. Anyone that knows anything about neurology can explain that the drugs that they're prescribing, that the big pharmaceutical companies that fund the media organizations that are paid to tell you what the news is, those companies with those drugs damage people's brains. And they know that they're damaging people's brains. The whole mentality of the psychiatrist is, this person is annoying. So what we're going to do, since this person is annoying and doesn't fit into the society, is we are going to break their brain and hinder them from being able to participate in the society in any meaningful way whatsoever.
Okay. Are there any mental health professionals that you would condone, like CBD therapy or just talk-based therapy?
Well, that's psychology. I think the general public is not aware on the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, right? People think a psychiatrist is, you lay down on a couch and you're going to talk about how you want to fuck your mother and kill your dad. That's not...
It's complex.
Yeah, that's not what a psychiatrist is. A psychiatrist is like a Stasi official that has a very narrow view of what human beings are allowed to think. And anything that is outside of that narrow view of what they deem an acceptable thought process will be isolated. And the best way I can try and explain it is it's like they're trying to break a horse. But I'm not a horse that you can break. And the people that you see on the streets that are disaffected, that cannot function, they cannot function because their brains have been damaged by this system. And everybody keeps telling them, go see a shrink. And it's the shrinks that are hurting us.
If the bail condition was to see a psychologist, would you have been more amenable to that? Like a community counselor, or just, again, someone that you could just speak to and they weren't prescribing drugs?
No. Because again, the condition was imposed because I used a legal tactic called filibuster. Mm-hmm. The condition to see a shrink was imposed because I spoke about my concerns of Chinese infiltration against like Constable Lee from the Toronto Police Service. And I accused him of being a Chinese operative, which he is. And I told him to get the fuck out of Canada and to not let the door hit him on the ass on the way out, to take his communist social credit system with him. Now, some people are going to say that's racist, but you people don't understand what the hell China is and what the hell China does to its own people.
Sure enough. So how are you fighting the bail conditions? What are you going to do if...
the bail conditions are already overturned. I've already won that fight.
When you go to court tomorrow and they're trying to make you take a plea deal, so how are you going to get out of that? What is your plan?
Well, I don't have to accept a plea.
Okay, so you'll take, like you said, you'll bite the bullet and you'll spend 2 years in prison.
Well, no, I'm not going to, they're going to lose the motion to quash.
So how are they going to, how is that going to go? How are they going to lose the motion?
Because they have no case.
Okay.
What they have is a bunch of exculpatory evidence. They have a 2 or 3 page manifesto of information that I was trying to communicate to the public. So, to try and say that that they could somehow construe that this act was not done to communicate information to the public, they have no case.
What I find interesting is that it's 2 counts of mischief. How do they do 2 counts of mischief? There's one action. Graffitiing the cenotaph is one action, so why is it 2 counts of mischief?
Well, they were trying to, overcharging is a common practice within the Canadian system, but the other reason, and part of why they're going to have to dismiss as well, is because this act, the information in this transaction is preferred under one act of Parliament instead of this one, which is mischief related to war memorials. Mm-hmm. So what they charge me, and it's abundantly clear that they did not read the entire mischief section. Because if they did read the entire mischief section, they wouldn't have gone with A and B. They would have gone, oh wait, there's 4.11 mischief related to war memorials, because a cenotaph is a war memorial. But for whatever reason, they fucked up. They didn't even know the law. And the other thing is, okay, so even if they did change it to mischief related to a war memorial, keep reading to the fucking bottom. And that's the thing. They don't read to the bottom. Just like most people don't read a news article all the way to the bottom. You read the law all the way to the bottom. Right to the bottom is where you get the saving section, where it says, can't be considered mischief if it's done to communicate information.
So it sounds like they don't have a case, but if they got their way, and it went worst case scenario for you tomorrow, what could happen?
I mean, they could try and upgrade the charge to 411 and proceed by way of indictment and go after a 10-year sentence, which, press your luck, motherfucker. Try it. Like, there's nothing that they can do. And the thing is, I've been engaged in this chess match against the Canadian state for a very long time. And, they say I have a condition that I'm paranoid for being aware that the government is monitoring and surveilling me. And so the way that they help me deal with this is by monitoring and surveilling me. I do a lot of work in international diplomacy and human rights. People don't know a lot of the work that I do, and it doesn't matter. There's thousands of people that do this work, and this work is what keeps the cars from crashing on the road.
Well, I gotta say that I'm really digging your new videos. The editing is looking super tight. The first one you released, I thought was really great because it summed up a lot of the stuff that you're trying to do. Because I feel like some of it does need unpacking, Well, a lot of it does. And with these short, concise videos, you can make them about one issue at a time, It's
Very consumable.
Do you find that that's been more rewarding?
It's not so much rewarding, it's because the initial way that I made my YouTube channel was very much like it states, the diary of a political dissident living in a psychiatrically controlled state. And so that's what's there, that's the raw footage of my oppression, which existed for over 10 years. And I didn't get, the beginning parts of that journey on film for YouTube. But starting in Edmonton, that's where I started feeling more confident to speak about what I was going through, and that's also when I started doing stand-up comedy, where I again felt like, okay, I can speak about these things that I've been through, although the comedy communities would do a lot to censor that kind of stuff because it's one of those rules of the 48 laws of power, right? You're never supposed to outshine the master. And I'm just so naturally damn funny looking that, people can't help laughing at some of the things. And I have, a way of just talking about serious things that is humorous. And I mean, I don't know why people lost that ability. Like I always grew up in the 90s with the understanding that when I was an adult, I could talk about fucked up shit in a tone that people would understand was humorous, and I could communicate true information in a way that people would understand. And the conclusion that I came to is that the society, instead of being on a trajectory of getting smarter, was on a trajectory of getting dumber. So it made the smart comedy a lot harder to do, because when the audience gets so fucking stupid that, the gist of my fucking stand-up routine can be like, hi, that's a Ray Romano joke, by the way. When that's the fucking level of comedy that I can do, I mean, it's like, all right, fuck you, like, get smart, because it's like, this is serious business. This whole idea that comics are there to say shit to necessarily make you laugh, that's not the only thing that a comic does, and when we started seeing things like the Mike Ward scenario, where this guy got brought before a human rights tribunal for making a joke about a kid with a funny face, like, it's a joke. And there's something fundamentally wrong in our society if comedians can't tell jokes. There's something fundamentally wrong in our society if Don Cherry can't tell people to wear a fucking poppy, okay? There's something fundamentally wrong in our society if someone this intelligent is labeled crazy. And of course the armchair psychologists will be like, look at how arrogant he is. Well, you know, I have to take care of myself. Like Jordan Peterson says, huh?
You gotta pump your tires, man.
That's right.
Everyone's trying to let the air out of them.
I don't know if I told you about this, but somebody tried to loosen the lug nuts off my truck tires, and I had a whole scenario, where I was driving through Flesherton, all 6 of the lug nuts came off in the exact same thing, and I found them all in the same place. And every mechanic that I have talked to, the only way that a rear tire is coming off of a pickup truck and all of the lug nuts are in the same damn place is if that tire was loosened. I'm like, this is the bigger point that I want to make to the Canadian government. Why are you guys so incompetent? I'm one schizophrenic person. If you wanted to kill me, like, I know you've tried a bunch of times and you've failed many, many times. So it's like, what good are you? You can't even kill me.
What else did they try and kill you?
Oh man, there's so many times. A lot of the times, what happens in the psychiatric facility is they overdrug you, just like the courts overcharge you.
So they're trying to overdose you.
Yeah, and they're essentially trying to kill you and make it look like a medical accident.
How many times has that happened?
13.
13. Holy shit. That is interesting to think that if it is the Canadian government and not a more private group that's trying to kill you, then they really are very incompetent.
It's your tax dollars at work, folks.
So, how long do you expect the proceedings to last tomorrow?
Oh, maybe 10, 20 minutes.
So you should be in and out.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll actually decide to hear the motion to quash, in which case it'll be a longer ordeal, 2 hours tops, but I think it'll, they're gonna very quickly see that I'm not interested in taking a plea. They'll speak a bunch of nice things. They might try and say, oh, well, he's mentally unwell if he doesn't want to take this plea deal. Because, caring about principles and the progression of the law is a sign of someone that's mentally unwell.
I'm curious as to the worst comments that you receive on the internet when you receive criticism. What are the worst criticisms you received, and then how do you rebut those?
I think some people thought, okay, on the internet, I can't really call it criticism, because criticism is based in an intelligent critique, whereas insults and name calling, I got take your meds a lot.
What are the main problems that people have with you? I mean, there's obviously a lot of people that don't agree with your viewpoint, and there's a lot of people who think, that you're crazy, that you're making this shit up, that it's not real. So what are the main arguments that make sense? What are the main arguments directed at you? And then what is usually your rebuttal to them?
So, like I said, the main argument is that I need to be medicated. Mm-hmm. And my position on it is all psychiatrists need to be shot.
Right. Is there any argument that actually goes beyond take your meds? Does anyone actually argue with you using any sort of articles, information, etc.? Does anyone actually try to argue with you in a critical kind of way?
Not for a very long time.
Because I would think that if someone disagrees with you, they would try to disagree with you by providing information.
Well, but I'm not a person. I'm not capable of thinking rationally, right? So they don't engage with me on that sphere. That's the prejudice that comes with the public mental health label.
Dave Chappelle said this when he went to Africa, right? Everybody called him crazy. He said it's the worst thing you can do because when you call somebody crazy, it's dismissive. Mm-hmm. And that's what it seems like people want to do with issues that are uncomfortable. And
I just want to sweep it under the rug.
You don't make it the most comfortable all the time.
Well,
but I understand why, and I appreciate why. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to give you a platform, and you don't need me to do it, but I wanted to sit down here and give you a chance to have a properly lit and sounded interview in a professional setting, right? Because you are running and gunning most of the time. You are in the woods wearing a ghillie suit, broadcasting to the masses, and at face value, people can write that off as crazy. But put a shirt and tie on and comb your hair nice and stand in front of a ring light with a fucking shotgun mic, and all of a sudden, this guy must be important.
And that's honestly, that's the main reason why I cultivated the YouTube audience that I have over the years with very low production quality. Because I'm, no offense, not really interested in the people that can't see past production quality. Like coming from a theater background and sound engineering and film, as you can see when I edit my stuff together, I could maybe use the camera that's not on my MacBook, right? Like maybe I could upgrade my production quality value and stuff like that, but that's not, the part of this is trying to break the programming, the propaganda programming, because I think oftentimes when people see an interview like this with professional lighting and all, they assume there's like some kind of check or balance where like the production team is checking whether or not the subject is full of shit or not, or and it's just like, you don't know if I'm full of shit or not. Right? So it's like, that's the whole thing about it. And so I know that over time, I've been able to help cultivate grassroots alliances, not just in Canada, but in other countries around the world. And that's the bigger part of the People's Party, the way that I worked on it before the Bernier crew came in and shit all over my ideas. But this is a global thing, and there are many people in different countries around the world that are in similar struggles, and they're pushing and they're getting through to people on a personal grassroots level, because that's the real way to change things, and all of us are really doing our best to prevent a war from happening, a war that they've been trying to kickstart for many years. And we've gotten very good at subverting these stories and these narratives that they keep pushing to try and push us into wars.
So which wars are we getting pushed into? And then my second question is, how are these grassroots movements changing people? What is your goal? What is your ultimate goal from arguing with people on the internet, pushing the courts, fighting against the court system? What is your ultimate goal for the Canadian people? What are you trying to achieve?
Total liberty.
Total liberty, and what does that mean for you?
Total liberty means a country where people have the freedom to own firearms. Total liberty means where people are free to earn a livelihood without being molested by the state and major corporations. Total liberty means justice, where you don't have to pay, like where you don't have a court system that's based off of who has the most money that can win. Total liberty is where we have a system where each person is awarded that which they are due. And that just isn't the case in Canada.
So how do we go about achieving this? How does this grassroots movement go about making that a possibility?
It's very hard to say it in a cohesive soundbite. But part of it is inspiring the hearts of the people to change. Because it's like at the end of the day, me and my teams of people that do all this stuff, we can only do so much. It falls on the citizen as to whether or not the citizen wants that type of future where they have total liberty.
So it's a numbers game.
It's not just a numbers game though, because like the Afghan mission, the way to win it was by winning the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. Mm-hmm. This is a very similar mission. We're trying to win the hearts and minds of the North American consciousness.
In order to make them believe that what they want is liberty and not to be subdued by the media.
You can't make them believe anything.
Well, to help uplift them, to inform them. So is your job, the job that you feel that you're here doing, is to inform people?
It's not necessarily to inform people. Sometimes it's to confuse them.
Force them to think critically.
Yeah.
I think what it sounds like is it's to spark people's interest in something other than the fucking Kardashians. You know, something important, something that matters to us, something that can actually impact the future, you know, our children's future.
Yeah. Kind of seeing the legacy of the giants' shoulders that we're standing on and trying to build upon that legacy instead of just coasting.
So if I want to come in there and see the proceedings tomorrow, can I?
Yeah.
I just can't film.
Not in a way that they can see.
Can I bring the recorder and put it in my pocket?
I don't see an issue with that.
Is there a metal detector?
Yeah, but I don't think, like, they have camera people there all the time, you know, from the major news outlets. They just have an understanding that they're not going to film in the courtroom. But, you know, I think, you know, like in legal jargon, there's this thing called the best evidence rule, where the court is entitled to the best evidence, the best quality of that evidence. And so if you're presenting a lower tier version of that evidence, then the court really can't accept it. So by that logic, you know, of the best evidence principle, there's no reason why the public should not have camera access to these courtrooms so that the public can have the best evidence of the proceedings in these justice systems and to see for themselves how dysfunctional that I am alleging that they are.
Well, shit, I could bring my phone and just put that on voice record. I could probably record just the audio that way.
Yeah.
I might be able to record some video as well, but we'll see. We'll scope it out. But I'd like to come, and then afterwards I'd like to do a follow-up interview with you and just get your take on how things went and
Yeah.
sum things up.
Yeah, I think that's doable.
Solid. I'll bring my gear to the courtroom tomorrow.
Ruby.
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this interview, Tom. It's been really good, man. I feel like we could probably release this one just in its entirety.
Dope.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs any editing, you know. Like, I still am going to follow up with the documentary of this whole event, but like the last one I felt needed editing.
Oh yeah, because that was a big rambly mess, and I
You're
was
all over the place. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd just been through the ringer.
I know, and like things were very hot, and we were getting you when it was like still very fresh, right?
Yeah.
But now that you've had time to settle and let things sink in and stuff, and you know, this is much more clear. Yeah.
Dope.
Dig it.
Dope.
All right, bro. Second sticks.
Wishing you the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.